Hi, it's Jan Beta, and I'm back here with my Amstrad CPC 464 that I did some restoration work on in one of the previous videos. And I also retrofitted a little phono jack there to have an external audio input to bypass the data corder, which is severely broken, this one, and I'm still going to try and fix it sometime, but not today. Because today is about a little device I bought that you can see plugged in the back here to make my life a bit easier. Loading stuff from audio devices connected to this audio input jack is kind of hit and miss. It works sometimes it works halfway, and then the system just crashes because it didn't really load the program you wanted to load correctly. There's all kinds of problems with like multi-load stuff. So I went online and researched more convenient ways to get actual software started on this system. One of which is, of course, to buy an original disk drive for the CPC 464, which exists. They are called the FD1. You need a disk drive interface for the CPC 464 because there's no such circuitry built into this. So you need an interface, which costs a pretty penny these days, and you need an original drive, which is the DDI1 is the disk drive interface, and the FD1 is the floppy disk drive you can get for these. And these things are pretty unreliable, I think, and they are also hilariously expensive, especially because they use the 3-inch floppy disks. And these 3-inch floppy disks are getting rare and expensive these days, and many of them are not working anymore. So there's not many modern interfaces made for the CPC line of computers these days. One of the only people I've found that make these is Zexon. And during my research, I got pretty much to the point where this is the only alternative I have. He makes disk drive interfaces, modern disk drive interfaces for the CPC line of computers. He has different models, some of which work for different CPC models, the 464 Plus and the 6128. I wanted one that works on my CPC 464. He makes some of them that already have a disk drive emulator built in, so you can just put disk files on a USB stick and plug it in, or on an SD card, I believe. This one is the DDI4, which has a 512 kilobyte RAM expansion, which I find pretty nice because it should enable my CPC 464 to run CPC 6128 software, because I have sufficient RAM for that, which is the main difference, I think, between the 464 and the 6128. And excuse me if I get stuff wrong, because I'm a total CPC noob. So take everything I say in this video with a grain of salt. So I wanted something that plugs into my CPC 464, and I can hook up a Gotek to, or a modern day, or rather modern day disk drive, like a 3.5-inch floppy disk drive, which I have a couple of standard PC drives. And this has the standard 34-pin disk drive connector, and it also has 512 kilobytes RAM, as I said. It has a reset button. It has the Parados ROM built in, which is a ROM made in 2015, I believe, that has all kinds of functions to be able to use 3.5-inch floppy disk drives on the CPC. And it also has a ABBA switch to connect multiple drives. You can use a cable, like a standard floppy disk drive cable has 2 connectors on it, so you can connect 2 drives, daisy chain them together. In theory, I'm not going to use that feature, I think. Maybe I'm going to use that in the future. And what's also nice, it has the cartridge edge connector going through it, so you can also connect another cartridge additionally, if you so desire. When I initially got this, I posted pictures of this on Twitter and immediately got warned by people that Zaxxon's customer service would not be very good, and this would not be very well documented. And yeah, all kinds of problems about that stuff. I found that this is pretty well made, at least from the outside. I've read through some forum posts and stuff, and there was at least one case where there was a capacitor put in the wrong way that somebody had in a forum, and he complained about it and allegedly contacted Zaxxon, and Zaxxon reacted in a pretty angry way and didn't really give a nice service. There's basically no documentation about this particular device that I could find online. On Zaxxon's site I couldn't really find it. 8bitclone.com is the address. That's like a blog which has very rudimentary information on it. This is not for everyone, I think. This is for people who have the patience to go through forum posts and read up on things. And then you can figure out how this thing works. So I'm trying to make a video where I explain a bit how this works. So maybe people are going to buy these anyway because of this video, because I think this is a very handy device if you have a CPC and want to use modern storage devices with it, like the Gotek, for example. So I think the initial problem in the forum that I read about was connecting an FD1 drive, like an original Amstrad or Schneider, which is the German version of these CPC drive, floppy disk drive, to this interface, which requires a modification to the cable, which I'm going to link in below. I'm also going to link the forum thread so you can read up on stuff yourself, and like, I'm not going to judge anyone, but yeah, just going to post it for completeness reasons. I found that this works so far. I had it plugged in and it doesn't do anything weird. Seems to just work. We are going to try and connect a Gotek and see if actually the disk loading stuff works too. At least it didn't destroy my machine, it didn't get hot or anything. It seems to be well made and nicely constructed so far. Case seems to be solid. Yeah, I had to clean up the edge connector on my CPC quite a bit before I could make it work, because that was it didn't make good contact, so the cartridge didn't really show up in the beginning. But then after I put some contact cleaner into the contacts, it worked. So this plugs into the floppy disk connector, obviously, because this is yeah, it's like the main edge connector port the CPC has. So we are going to connect this. And I don't think you can connect another floppy disk interface, which you don't need to really, because this does all the interfacing stuff. I think there's some other peripherals that you can connect through this port that you can still connect, because the edge connector is continued here. So far I have figured out that this is the reset button. Obviously, just resets the system. This little switches between the Parados ROM that's in here and the regular AMS-DOS ROM, which is the normal CPC Amstrad DOS. You can switch between this. And this is the ABBA switch, which switches the drive addresses around in case you have two drives connected, I think. I won't be using this today because I only plan on connecting one Gotek to this. If you are looking for information about other stuff, this is not the video for you, I'm afraid. So if you're not familiar with Goteks, this is a Gotek drive which is emulating, it pretends to be a disk drive basically. It has the same connections as a disk drive. You can put a USB stick in this USB connector with disk images on it, and depending on the firmware that is on this, it reads all kinds of images and works with all kinds of computers. This one has the flash floppy firmware on it, which I recommend. I got this from amigastore.eu, and it's equipped with all kinds of it has a little OLED display. and a little rotary encoder knob and like 2 buttons and 2 LEDs. Normally in the basic configuration you get like a 7-segment display and only the 2 buttons and 1 LED, I think. You can you just see the number of the disk image you have selected. In this case we will see the name of the disk image and can select it by pushing the button and scroll through them by using the rotary encoder. So this is the luxury version. I am going to make another video where I upgrade a standard Gotek to this basically. But that video isn't finished yet, so this probably is going to be out before the Gotek flash floppy upgrading video. Sorry about that. So what we're going to need is power for this drive. The Goteks only take 5 volts power. Regular disk drives usually take 5 volts and 12 volts. And we need a disk drive cable which is a 34 pin cable, like this one. This is a standard PC 34-pin disk drive cable to connect disk drives in a regular modern day or not so modern day PC. Like when floppy disk drives still came in PCs, this was the standard cable. You can see that this cable has the pins reversed for some of the connections there. So we are going to need a straight connection for the Gotek drive, I think. So we are going to use this portion of the cable where there are no wires changed around. That should work fine. We just have to pay attention where pin 1 is, which is indicated by the red wire. And also there's a little indentation on the connector and on the socket here. So you can't really go wrong. I also marked pin 1 with the red stripe on my Gotek here, so because it varies for different computers and for different connections. So you want to make sure that that's connected the right way around, especially on the power connector, but that's also marked on the PCB, as we are going to see. So our disk drive cable should work without modification. We're going to see about that, because I haven't tried this. I'm trying this the first time on video. For the power connector we need 5 volts on the rightmost pin here, and I think the middle 2 pins are ground, so we need to connect 1 to 5 volts and 1 to ground basically. You can just get these connectors and cables pre-made basically. I'm just going to make my own cable, I think, because I can. So the Gotek takes 5 volts. What else has 5 volts? Right, USB. So my plan is to just cut this random USB cable I had lying around and use that as my power supply cable for the Gotek and just use a phone charger. Or maybe a PC should also be sufficient to power a Gotek drive from the USB port. And I'm going to make my own connector from my set of crimping connectors with my crimping tool, which I've also already shown off in the Commodore 16 RAM expansion video that I'm going to link in here. And this time I'm going to link this tool in the description as well. It's not very expensive, it's not the best one, but it's sufficient for my use, I have to say. And it's really handy to have something like this, because you can just make a connector like one of these, which should fit. Yeah, should just fit on here. And if you put the contacts in there, it grips also, because this has the same pin spacing as a standard pin header. So the 2.54 millimeters pin spacing is probably derived from inches. So it's 1/10 of an inch, I believe. Is it? Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know much about inches because I'm in Germany, in Europe. So we don't use inches that often. So what I'm going to do is to cut the cable and crimp on the new connector and then see if we can power the Gotek with a USB power supply. Before I go on and cut this cable, I want to point out that this video was sponsored by PCBWay. To do something more constructive, you can order your self-made PCBs from them. They are offering PCB manufacturing services for your prototyping stuff and also larger scale projects. And they have very high quality and short turnaround times while being very reasonably priced. And they offer a great service too. So I can recommend them, and they sponsored this video. Thanks PCBWay. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so this is pretty decent cable actually. It's got a thick layer of shielding on it, which we don't need at all. Usually the USB cables are just 4 wires that are, most of them that I've seen are correctly color coded. So this is going to be data lines are green and white, and the black and the red one are going to be ground and 5 volts positive. So we don't need these, we don't need the shielding, we just need the red and the black wire basically. Just going to verify that these are the correct wires by connecting this to a USB power supply and measuring with the multimeter. Of course, I'm going to strip the wires first, which I need to do anyway. Okay, there we go. Okay, ideally we're going to have 5 volts across here. Yay! Okay, that's going to be enough. So for crimping we need contacts. These come on this thing here. These are the contacts for the plug thingies. I need 2, I think. So this is going to be difficult to film with the camera in the way. Basically, what I want to do is to stick these in here. There's 2 sections on these. One with the longer flaps that grips the cable, I think, and one with the shorter flaps that grips actually makes contact to the wire. So you want to position this in a way. Kind of need a steady hand for this. You can put this in and hold it in a bit and then put the wire in. I think that's the way people do it. I'm going to try. Yeah, that worked. Okay, let me try and do this again. So I'm putting my little contact into the tool and then pushing down just so much that it holds it, and this actually locks in place, so it's easy to do. Then I put the wire in the correct position so that the larger flaps grab the insulation and the smaller flaps grab the wire. And then I'm pushing. And ideally, yeah, this makes a really strong, physically strong and electrically good connection. And these can just be plugged into our little plastic housing from the side with the larger holes. It should just lock in place with the other little flaps that they have on the top there. So I kind of want to get rid of the stuff we don't need here. Just going to slide this over the cable so we don't have to do it afterwards. Now I'm just going to try to put these contacts into the actual connector. We need 5 volts here. Oh, the other way around, of course. 5 5 volts on this one. There we go. And then I'm just going to use, I think the middle 2 pins are connected together. Hold on. Yes, they are. Okay, the middle 2 pins are both ground, so we only connect one to ground. You only need to connect one to ground. And we are going to leave a little gap, because for good measure. It's not like anything's going to explode if we don't. So the 5 volt positive is a bit at an angle, so we have to, we have to reinsert it there after the little flaps didn't bend right. I think I inserted it at an angle into the tool, so one of the little flaps is in the way now. Unprofessional! Yeah, this should do it. Sorry about that. Now it should be, yeah, locks in place. So this should connect like this. And it does. Nice. No worries there. So we made a power connector. Okay, I just realized I did it very unprofessionally, because pin 1 should be the 5 volts and the pin 1 marking on this connector is here. So it's completely, you should do this the other way around if you want to pass as a professional, which I'm clearly not. But I know, so I'm going to have to remember this. Also, I think it can't do any harm because the other pin is just not connected. So if you put this in reverse, ground is still going to be ground, and the 5 volts is just going to go nowhere. So in this case, we're going to get away like this. And it seems to work. We have the flash floppy startup message here. And yeah, it doesn't do anything because we don't have a USB stick connected with disk images. But we have power. Nice. So the rest should basically be a matter of connecting the disk drive cable and turning the machine on, and we should have a working disk drive. Or at least a disk drive emulator. So this should go in like this. And then the end without the twisted cables should go into the DDI4 interface. And of course I could use some better cable for this, but this is what I have at the moment. So my guess is that pin 1 is here where it says 34p. We're going to find out pretty quickly, I guess. Yeah. Basically, we need to connect up the Gotek to power. Oh, and of course, I need to insert a USB stick with some disk images first before I can do anything, basically. Let me quickly fetch some disk images. Yeah, the Gotek, or the flash floppy firmware rather, warns me that the ribbon cable may be upside down. So probably it has to be connected the other way around. And I'll put this in the other way around. So the pin 1 is facing upwards, which makes sense, of course. Not just as much. There we go. Okay, I put some disk images on the USB stick you can see sticking out here. Just downloaded the TOSAC pack of basically all collected works that have been ever released for the CPC. I'm not going to link to that because I don't know if there's anything on there that's not quite legal. Probably there is, so I'm going to leave you with searching for that yourself. You can just basically, it's pretty easy to find disk files. DSK files should work with the flash floppy firmware, and HFE files, I believe, should also work. I have DSK files on here. 128 ones. And I can like turn this rotary encoder and select one, and then I should insert it by just pushing down. Should of course turn on the CPC to see if this actually works. So fingers crossed this actually works. This should have juice already. So we should be able to see the directory, I think. So we should load bool, probably. Let's see if that works. It doesn't do, oh, it does do the LED thing, but it has a little speaker, which doesn't seem to work anymore. I don't know why. Maybe it just doesn't work with the CPC. Okay, doesn't work. Oh, now it works. The memory is full. Okay, let's reset. I'm a complete CPC noob, so please excuse any inconsistencies. The memory is full. That's bad. Why is the memory full? So the Gotek works, but it says my memory is full. Of course, we should also have 512K memory expansion, I guess. Okay, turns out I'm just a CPC noob, as I said before. This works fine, actually. I was doing this load disk, which gives me memory full for some larger games. And I should be able to run this with run, because it uses a different memory map or something like that. So we can use the full memory with the run command. And this should actually work. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this DDI4 with the memory expansion, because there's actually a new version of Pinball Dreams, believe it or not, for the Amstrad CPC. And it's quite glorious. Oh, my upscaler doesn't play well with the sudden change in resolution, I guess, because the CPC has quite some different screen modes. There we go. And this originally only runs on the CPC 6128 with more memory, and now it runs on my 464 with the memory expansion without any problems. I just started it and it works. Which is great, of course. This is one of the reasons why I bought this in the first place. Yeah, and this is absolutely amazing. Let's try Nightmare. And it's fast. The Gotek is really quick loading stuff, it seems. This is so awesome. I mean, the original version is an Amiga version. And this looks, except for the pixels being a bit more blocky, this looks really smooth and really colorful. I'm going to link this in below. So you can, this is a free download as well. So this is like a hobbyist remake of Pinball Dreams for the Amiga version. And I lost the ball right away because I can't play games and talk. Which reminds me to advertise my Twitch channel that I recently started again. I'm going to link that in now. So if you want to see me sucking at games and talking at the same time more often, you can check out my Twitch channel. I usually stream on Thursday evenings from original old hardware that I repair on the YouTube channel, mostly, or that I refurbish on the YouTube channel. So maybe see you there. Here's another thing that I'm trying for the first time today. This controller, which is specific to the CPC, because it has the DB9 connector like the Atari joysticks have too, but it has a slightly different pinout. This one was designed and made by The Geek, or GK. I'm going to link this in the description, and he's going to sell these at some point. These are really well made, 3D printed, all DIY stuff. You can take this apart and have, this is like the size of a NES controller basically, and you can add this part so you have a bit more grip. I think I like it better like this. I'm not used to the small stuff. This works really well. It's like clicky buttons all around, and feels really sturdy and good. So I can recommend this. Going to link the site in below, and there's going to be some kind of notification there when these are available, I guess. And I'm also going to alert people about these because I really like this stuff. Self-made control pad for the CPC. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for today. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again on this channel sometime. I am Jan Beta. One joystick. And special thanks go out to my Patreon supporters, who are going to be listed in the credits roll as per usual. And I'm going to enjoy me some Boulder Dash now with my much more useful CPC and my new controller. Oops. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Jan Beta. See you next time. Bye.